Have you ever noticed the sound of a room when everything is turned off? Not true silence, but a quiet hum. The sound of electricity in the walls, the house settling, the distant whisper of the world outside. For a while after my own awakening, that's what my inner world felt like. Not a roar of enlightenment, not a choir of angels, just a low, constant, electrical hum. The big, explosive insight had already happened. I'd had the breakdown that became the breakthrough. I had seen through the matrix of my own conditioning, the frantic, ego-driven need to perform, to please, to achieve. I saw it all as a game, a beautifully complex illusion, and in that seeing, there was a moment of profound peace, a sense of release so total it felt like I had finally come home. But then, the hum started. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, the vibrant colors of the world began to fade. The passions that once drove me, the goals that got me out of bed, they didn't crumble dramatically. They just dissolved. Motivation wasn't lost. It evaporated. It was like my soul had turned down the volume on life and then misplaced the remote. I remember a specific Tuesday morning. The sun was pouring through the window, the kind of bright, optimistic light that used to fill me with energy. I was sitting with a cup of coffee, watching the steam rise, and I felt absolutely nothing. Not sadness, not despair, not even boredom. It was a clean, hollow, crystalline numbness. The person who used to fix everyone, who carried the emotional weight of my friends and family like a sacred duty, was gone. In his place was a ghost, a quiet observer who couldn't remember why he was supposed to care about the script of his own life. The question wasn't a shout, it was a whisper that echoed in the emptiness. Is this it? I finally see the truth. And the truth is blank. This is the great, unspoken paradox of awakening, the one nobody prepares you for. We are sold a story of fireworks, of bliss, of purpose finally revealed. But for so many of us, especially those of us wired to feel everything, the empaths, the sensitives, the deep feelers, the first stage of true liberation feels an awful lot like a quiet, creeping death. It is the emptying, and it is the most misunderstood, yet most vital, part of the entire journey. Carl Jung, the masterful psychologist who charted these hidden territories of the soul, knew this. He wasn't interested in the pop spirituality of quick fixes. He understood that a true meeting with the self begins with a profound loss. He famously said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." We love that quote. We put it on Instagram graphics, but we rarely sit with the bone-chilling reality of what it means. Making the darkness conscious isn't a weekend workshop. It is a psychological dismantling. The structures that held you together, your ambition, your identity, your very sense of self, were built on a foundation of sand. The awakening is the earthquake that reveals this. Your old operating system has crashed, and the void you're feeling right now isn't a bug in the system. It's the terrifying, silent screen that appears before the new one has finished booting up. What you are in is not a failure. It is a sacred space, a chrysalis. And the purpose of this time isn't to find your motivation again. It is to let the old, false fuel burn away completely, so you can discover what moves you when there is nothing left to prove. Today, we are going to walk through that fire. We will map the void, not as a problem to be solved, but as a territory to be explored. By the end of our journey, you will not only understand why your drive has vanished, but you will begin to feel the first stirrings of a new kind of power, one that doesn't push, but pulls, one that is silent, deep, and unbreakable. So, let's get real about who you were before the hum started. The word empath has been diluted into meaning simply a nice, compassionate person. It's so much more primal than that. To be an empath, a highly sensitive person, as psychologist Elaine Aron terms it, is to have a nervous system that is fundamentally different. It's a high-definition receiver in a low-resolution world. Neuroscience gives us a glimpse into this. Studies on empathy show that the insular and the anterior cingulate cortex, regions of the brain that process emotion and bodily sensations, are often hyperactive in sensitive people. Your mirror neurons don't just reflect another person's state, they hijack your own system. You don't just see their sadness, you metabolize it. Their anxiety becomes a tremor in your own hands. Their joy, a fleeting warmth in your own chest. This isn't a choice. It's your default setting. From a young age, this exquisite sensitivity feels less like a gift and more like a massive vulnerability. To survive, you became a master strategist. You developed a sophisticated defense mechanism, a mask so perfectly crafted, you eventually forgot you were even wearing it. Jung called this mask the persona. For the empath, the persona is almost always some version of the performer. You might have been the healer, the peacemaker, the fixer, the supportive friend, the good listener. Your entire identity was sculpted around your utility to others. Why? Because if you could manage and soothe the emotional states of everyone around you, you could create a safe, predictable environment for your own sensitive nervous system. It was a brilliant, unconscious survival strategy. Your motivation, therefore, was entirely external. It was a performance fueled by validation. Every thank you, every I don't know what I'd do without you. Every nod of approval was a hit of dopamine, a confirmation that the mask was working. You were motivated by the fear of rejection and the deep, addictive need to be needed. Your sense of worth was not inherent. It was crowdsourced. But a performance, no matter how convincing, is exhausting. It is an anxious, brittle way to live, a constant monitoring of the audience, and a true awakening is the moment the stage lights go out. It is the universe calling your bluff. The awakening demands one thing above all else: authenticity. And authenticity is the death of the performer. This is why you feel so lost. The void is the backstage of your life. The audience is gone. The script is meaningless, and you are standing there under a single ghost light without your costume. The old fuel source, validation, sir, is gone. The old map, the needs and expectations of others, has been burned. The apathy you feel is a direct consequence of this collapse. Your psyche, in its profound wisdom, has put you in a state of psychological lockdown. It is saying, stop. The old way of being was a lie. A beautiful, well-intentioned, necessary lie. But a lie nonetheless. We will not proceed until we find a truth to move from. This isn't a passive waiting. This is an active dissolution. You are the caterpillar in the cocoon. And what happens inside? It doesn't just sprout wings. It turns to soup. A complete and total liquefaction of its former self. You are not failing. You are dissolving. And the most dangerous thing you can do right now is to judge the goo. To believe that this state of profound stillness is wrong. This is your hermit phase, a sacred and necessary withdrawal from the world of performance into the world of being. The modern world pathologizes this state, calling it depression, seeing it as a problem to be medicated away. But ancient wisdom traditions understood it as a rite of passage. It is the dark night of the soul, and the only way out is through. Resisting it, trying to snap out of it, is like a caterpillar trying to glue its old legs back on while its very cells are screaming for transformation. So the first step is a radical act of surrender, to give the void permission, to honor the stillness, to trust the dissolution, because in this sacred nothingness you are not being abandoned, you are being rebuilt from the ground up. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. For a while, in this void, you might be tempted by a dangerous detour. a trap that looks spiritual but is in fact the ego's last desperate attempt to avoid the messy work of transformation. This is the trap of spiritual bypassing. It's the voice that whispers, "Nothing matters. It's all an illusion. I'm above it all." You might find yourself feigning a cool, detached Zen-like persona, but this isn't true detachment. It's disengagement. It's a high-minded excuse to avoid the raw, uncomfortable, embodied work of feeling what needs to be felt. It is simply swapping the healer mask for the enlightened one mask. It is another performance. Your psyche knows better. It will not let you escape. The emptiness will persist. The hum will continue until you are willing to turn and face what you have spent your entire life running from. This is what Jung called shadow integration. The shadow, for Jung, isn't your evil side. It is simply the parts of yourself that you repressed in order to be loved, accepted, and safe. It is everything you deemed unacceptable to your role as the performer. And for the empath, the shadow contains the very things you now need to become whole. Your healthy anger, your righteous selfishness, your dormant ambition. Let's start with anger. As an empath, you were likely taught that anger is a bad emotion. It's disruptive. It's not nice. It hurts people's feelings. So you buried it. You learned to swallow it, to rationalize it away, to transmute it into sadness or guilt. But anger, in its purest form, is a sacred life force. It is a boundary. It is the clear, clean energy that says, "No." It is the guardian of your vitality. By repressing your anger, you left your energetic gates wide open. You allowed your energy to be drained, your boundaries to be crossed, and your needs to be ignored. Your psyche is now withholding motivation because it knows you cannot build a new, authentic life without a proper fence. You cannot be a lamp for the world if you are not protecting your own oil. The work here is to begin to feel it again, not to act it out recklessly, but to honor its presence. When that flash of irritation arises, don't push it down. Pause. Breathe into it. Ask it, what are you here to protect? What boundary has been crossed? You must learn to say no without a 10-page explanation. A simple no is a complete sentence. Each time you do this, you reclaim a piece of your stolen power. Next, you must embrace what I call sovereign selfishness. Not greed or narcissism, but the radical act of placing your own well-being and your own soul's calling at the center of your life. The performer lived for others. The sovereign self lives from its own core. You have spent a lifetime being a mirror, perfectly reflecting back what others needed to see. Your psyche is forcing you to stop, so you can discover what it feels like to be a lamp. A lamp doesn't ask the darkness what kind of light it prefers. It simply shines. This means dedicating time, energy, and resources to things that nourish you with no external purpose or justification. It might be painting, learning an instrument, walking in the woods, or simply sitting in silence. It is about asking the question, what do I want? What do I need? And treating the answer as sacred. This isn't selfish. It is the essential act of filling the well. You cannot give what you do not have. Finally, you must reconnect with your true ambition. The performer's ambition was to be liked, to be validated. It was about climbing a ladder that society built. But your soul's ambition is different. It is the deep, quiet pull toward what you are uniquely here to create, express, or become. It has nothing to do with status or applause. It is the ambition to be fully, unapologetically yourself. By integrating these shadow aspects, your anger as your guardian, your selfishness as your nourishment, and your ambition as your guide, you are not becoming a worse person. You are becoming a whole person. You are gathering the scattered, disowned parts of yourself. And it is this wholeness that becomes the foundation for a new kind of motivation. As you do this deep, often uncomfortable work of shadow integration, something remarkable begins to happen. The loud, anxious static of the ego begins to quiet down, and in its place, the quiet, steady hum of the void begins to transform. It becomes less like the hum of an empty room and more like the low, resonant frequency of a cello string. This is the emergence of the self, not as an idea, but as a felt sense, an inner center of gravity. Jung called this the process of individuation. It is the journey from being a fragmented personality, driven by external forces, to a whole, integrated being, guided by an internal compass. Motivation does not return like a lightning bolt. It does not feel like the old, frantic hustle. The new motivation feels like alignment. It is a quiet, inner knowing. It is a series of nudges from your soul. Living from the self is a radical shift from pushing to responding. You stop trying to figure everything out with your mind, and you start learning to listen to the wisdom of your body, your intuition, your resonance. Life stops being a problem to be solved and becomes a mystery to be participated in. So what does this actually look like in the real, messy world? It looks like asking different questions. Instead of, what should I do with my life? You start asking, what is life asking of me right now? What feels alive for me today? Instead of, what's the 5-year plan? You ask, what is the next right, small step? Instead of, how can I be successful? You ask, what would feel most true? This new fuel source isn't adrenaline. It's authenticity. It's a motivation that is not dependent on your mood, on external results, or on anyone else's approval. It is sustainable because it is sourced from your own deepest core. You might be drawn to create, to teach, to heal, to build. Not because you should, but because the expression of that energy is its own reward. The action and the fulfillment are one and the same. You will find that you no longer chase clarity. You learn to recognize it when it arrives. You will stop forcing open doors and instead learn to walk through the ones that are already open. Your ambition transforms from a need to prove your worth into a devotion to expressing the truth that lives within you. And the irony is, this soul-powered way of being is often far more effective and impactful than the ego's desperate striving ever was. Because the energy behind it is clean, coherent, and whole. You stop being a mirror reflecting the world's chaos, and you become a lamp that brings its own steady light into the room. So if you are in the void right now, feeling like your spark has been extinguished, I want you to consider this. Perhaps it was only the kindling that burned away. The superficial, ego-driven fire that was dependent on the winds of external validation has gone out. And that is a cause for celebration, because now, in the stillness, in the darkness, you have the opportunity to find a deeper fire, a central, soul-level flame that is not dependent on external conditions, a fire that burns steadily, quietly, and warmly from the center of your own individuated self. This path isn't easy. Jung never promised that. It requires courage, patience, and a radical trust in a process that your logical mind cannot comprehend. It is the journey from performance to presence, from pleasing to purpose, from being a reflection to being a source. This emptiness you feel is not the end of your awakening. It is the true beginning of your becoming. Trust the process, trust the silence, and know that the goo is holy ground. If this journey resonated with you, if it gave a name to the silent landscape you've been navigating, please share your experience in the comments below. There is immense power in knowing we are not walking this strange and sacred path alone. And if you wish to explore the deeper layers of psychology, soul, and self-awareness, please subscribe and join our community. Let's continue to make the invisible visible together. Thank you for walking with me today.